So you might recognize this table. This is the rustic outdoor table, which we built on the show in Arizona. The finish didn't hold up very well, and when we moved to Colorado, I refinished it using some Total Boat sealer, epoxy sealer, and then top coated it with a marine varnish. Now, a couple years later, unfortunately, I'm in a position where I have another decision to make. Take a look at some of this damage. The real fatal flaw of this finish comes down to this breadboard. Anytime you have an edge, and this edge wasn't finished, right? We finished right over top of this. I didn't put finish inside here. That is a place where the finish might eventually start to flake and lift. And once it lifts and you have infiltration of moisture, it's just going to keep on going. And that's what all this is. So if you look over the table, any place where there's extensive damage, there's usually a spot where you could see kind of the epicenter. You could see where it started. Sometimes it's a dog claw scratch because Dougie likes to get on top of the table. And other times it might be just a utensil scratch or something. Or in this case, a natural breaking point where a breadboard end has movement because there's grain going in different directions. So you have to be really careful when you're doing film finishes on these outdoor pieces because the film will always break at a certain point and then start to flake up. Now, if you check out the base, it's actually kind of, well, it's in much better shape. The finish isn't as deteriorated, but the base is covered by the top, so it doesn't get as much UV and certainly not as much moisture held in place. So one thing I could definitely say is any outdoor piece that I build in the future probably won't have breadboard ends unless I use a non-film finish. And I also will likely not do a complete solid top like this. I think there's huge benefit in having gaps between the boards for drainage. So we're actually getting a lot of work done on our backyard, and it's causing me to rethink where things are going to go. For a table that's going to get as much exposure as this one does, I'm probably just going to go buy something that either has a glass top or a metal top or a tile top, something that's easy to clean, and that will be the table that we can use on a routine basis as a family, and we don't have to throw a tablecloth over it. We also need a coffee table because we do have a covered patio area that doesn't get as much exposure, not nearly as much sun, hardly any moisture at all, but it is outside. So if we can repurpose this somehow, because my alternatives are to just maybe give it to somebody, let it sit outside and continue to get worse, or do something with it that actually is useful. So I think that's where we're going to go. I've designed something that I feel like there's enough material in this that if we break it down and we're very careful about how we take these boards down, we can remill them and give this another life as a coffee table. So let's do it. We flip the table over to detach the top and start breaking it down. The ends are sawn first, and then I rip the top into strips right along the glue lines. Now we can use a reciprocating saw to cut the rails off the legs. I'm going to use the legs as our coffee table legs, so I cut out the cleanest sections that I can. At the bandsaw, I can trim the remaining rail stock off the legs, and then joint and plane them to size. I can then cut them to final length at the chop saw. Because Western red cedar is super soft, and the end grain is where we're likely to have the most moisture infiltration, I fill the ends with epoxy. Once dry, I can again cut them to length, and now the end grain is thoroughly sealed. I pick through the pieces to find stock for the rails. None of them are perfect, but we'll put any flaws toward the inside. Here I have a slot that I'll fill with a domino. Notice that I had to sand it to make the grain match up, and the dominoes turned and inserted in a way that you normally don't insert a domino. This will be on the inside of the rail, so it doesn't have to look perfect. A few of my ends have the remnants of the previous domino mortises, so I'll fill those with dominoes and some epoxy. Once dry, I can cut the board to final length, and then cut the new mortises. While they're still nice and square, I'll cut the mortises in the legs as well. To give the legs some shape, I'll make a template for the inside curved tapers. We can cut those at the bandsaw. The first cut removes our second line, so I'll tape the offcut back onto the leg and then cut the second curve. The sawn surface is smoothed with a little bit of sanding. The rails will have a nice little curve as well, so I'll draw those directly onto the rails, cut them to shape at the bandsaw, and then sand smooth. When you have multiple parts of the same size and shape, you can sand them all at once by clamping them together. This helps prevent rounding over the edge and helps make the curves uniform. The legs get one additional detail, which is a rounding of the outside faces. I've done this on a few projects in the past, and it's a great way to dress up a simple, flat outside surface of a leg. Time for the glue up. This is an outdoor piece, so Type Bond 3 should do the trick. This cedar is so soft that I'm using rags to prevent the clamps from denting the surface. Honestly, if you just look at this wood wrong, it dents. And that's our base. Now we can make the top. We'll start with the frame. The frame is mitered at the corners, so we'll use a sled at 45 degrees, make the cut, and then double check the angle. Now with the frame dry clamped, we can cut and fit the center divider. The inner slats are resawn at the bandsaw and milled down to final size, which is whatever size I'm left with after planing them clean. Much of this project's dimensions were dictated by what the wood allowed me to do. I cut the slats to length on one half of the top first. I feel like it's going to be nearly impossible to nail both sides perfectly, so once I get the first slats in place with spacers, I can clamp it, and that dry assembly can be used to measure the length of the slats for the other side. They should be really close, but even if they're slightly different, no one's ever going to see it. Next, I'll mark the center of each slat and transfer those marks to the frame. I can then share those marks across the center divider and the other frame piece since they should all be the same. Now we'll cut the mortises. By the way, this domino method is made possible thanks to the Domino Dock by Ramon Valdez. It's a clever little contraption and makes processing these small parts super fast and easy. The rails and divider receive their mortises as well. The divider also gets some mortises on the ends that'll help secure it to the outer frame. The slats are all sanded smooth and the corners are eased with a small round over bit. The assembly of the top is a little bit tricky. I didn't add mortise and tenon joints to the miters because I honestly didn't think that I could get the entire assembly together that way. There's just too many competing mortise and tenon joints, so you'll soon see what we do to strengthen those miters. For now, they just get a whole lot of glue. Because I need a lot of working time, and this is an outdoor piece, I'm actually using Type Bond's polyurethane glue for the first time. While this stuff does foam up quite a bit as it cures, I have to say it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, and I was thankful for the ample working time. Once the glue was dry, we sanded the top thoroughly and used a chisel to get rid of the squeeze out on the underside of the table. Probably should have cleaned that up when the glue was still wet, but I was hungry, and food always trumps whatever I'm doing in the shop at that time. Now our top is glued up, and you might be thinking about these miter joints, especially for something that's outside. Any wood movement that occurs, we might get separation at the joint, they might lift. This could be a potential problem, but part of our strategy was that we were going to reinforce this miter with splines. So I've got a spline cutting jig that I'm going to show you, and even though this thing is very big, Western red cedar is very light, so I don't feel too unsafe making this kind of cut. Let's go to the table saw. So this is a spline cutting jig that I made quite a while ago. It basically has two MDF sides, just some plywood scrap, making a 90-degree cradle, and everything is held so that the workpiece or the frame can go in here and go right across a very high saw blade. So we'll lock the top in this piece and just get ready to make these cuts like so. Now, I know this looks sketchy, but you have to understand just how light Western red cedar really is. The entire completed table weighs in at only 30 pounds, so the top is maybe 20 pounds at most. As long as I push along the fence at a slow and steady pace, it's all good, but I realize it does look a little bit wacky. All 8 slots were cut with absolutely no trouble, and I should mention that I'm using a square tooth blade, as that gives the best results for slots like this. The splines, or keys, are cut out of a strip of mahogany, which is planed for a nice slip fit. The triangles are cut out at the bandsaw, just oversized for the opening. Using a putty knife, I spread glue in the slot and onto the keys. Notice how the grain is perpendicular to the joint. That is absolutely essential for strength. After all 8 keys are inserted, we clean up the excess glue and then throw on a strap clamp. This pushes the keys home while an additional clamp sandwiches the joint closed. Once the glue is dry, we can sand off the excess. Now I can't overstate how much stronger these joints are now that we have those double keys in place. For an outdoor piece, this is absolutely essential, and it looks pretty cool too. For the finish, I'm moving away from films and trying an Osmo product intended for outdoor use. The pigment in the finish goes a long way for protecting the wood against UV rays, and the oil-wax blend should repel dirt and moisture. The finish is spread lightly, trying to make it go as far as it can. We really don't want it to pull up at all. Once coated, we could wipe back the excess with some clean rags. Now this finish isn't bulletproof, and it will need to be renewed occasionally, but it definitely won't crack and peel, and I expect it'll be a good choice for a covered patio. To attach the top, I'll use figure 8 fasteners. So in the end, not a bad fate for a table that was really in bad shape. Hey, it's Mateo. What do you think of the table? Dad, I think it's fantastic. No.
I think it's standard.
It's standard? What's that mean?
It looks nice.
Okay. Well, thanks, buddy. So the cool thing is, the table is well protected. I think the finish we have is going to be easy to reapply. Ava?
Whoa, I love it.
Do you guys think this is going to hold up better than the other table did?
Let's see how much weight it can do.
There you go. Test it out, man.
Okay.
You want to do bubbles? So I actually have enough material that I think I might be able to build some small side tables or something with this. Nothing is wasted. All right. Well, that's the end of the video.